loving presence to envelop you, filling you from your toes to your head and beyond, out the crown of your head, above you, and back down, all around you. This pure essence, this pure light of spirit is all in and around you. And from this space, you can see clearly into your world, those who are near and dear to you, those who you only hear about through the media. And you can accept each one is doing what they're doing the best they know how, given what they have to work with, given what they know and understand so far. And you can have the willingness to touch into your loving and let it extend, not only to yourself, but to all those that you touch, those you may pass with a passing glance on the street, or those that you see every day and care for deeply, and those that you hear about and it touches your heart. And you begin to see some things you simply accept and leave them as they are. And some things you are called to take a step, to take an action in loving, in your consciousness of loving, to reach out, to offer a hand, to offer a kind word, a friendly smile. And all of this, when you come from your loving heart, is so natural, so easy, so grace-filled. You may not even realize you are walking as God here on the planet, uplifting yourself and all those to whom you touch. And as we live this law of assumption, we are bringing forward the new age on the planet. We are bringing forward the golden age, such that we can all live in harmony and loving. Despite so many diverse views and cultures and traditions, so many beliefs, different positions, we can all be seen through the eyes of the universal Christ within. So allow these blessings to penetrate, to fill, surround, guide, and protect you. And take a moment in silence for your own wishes, your own prayers, to be uplifted from this sacred space. And when you are ready, let your energy float on the sound of the singing bowls.
sigh. Opening your eyes, wiggling your fingers and toes, and being grateful for this moment of communion with the divine.
That was good. Thank you so much, Sam and Lania, for your beautiful affirmations and meditation. It's really an honor for you to do that, considering what's on your heart right now. And we're holding you in prayer as well. And for all you father dudes out there, and those of you who find yourself in a fatherly role, we definitely want to wish you again a happy Father's Day. I know it might be hard to really focus on Father's Day with all that's been going on in our world lately, but it's important to take that time to honor those folks in our lives who have fulfilled that role. And if you are currently fulfilling that role, it's a good day to take a breath. Take a breath, take a bow, take stock in the journey, and just really be appreciative and grateful for actually having the opportunity, the blessed opportunity, to be in that role. So we definitely want to honor all of the fathers. I myself am a part of that community, and so we will take a breath, take a bow, or in my case, sleep for a few hours before I have to go to work tonight. So whatever works. Okay, we are in our final part of our series, Divine Justice, taking a look at this idea of justice from a divine perspective as something much like love and truth and peace and wisdom. We can actually perceive this quality of justice and experience it within ourselves and outpicture it in our lives. As we consider our working definitions for divine justice in this series, divine justice is that awareness that stems from the idea that God is all there is. It's the activity that holds a thing in integrity with its God essence or its God nature. And we say a thing is divinely just when it facilitates the experiencing and the expression of God's life, both in the spirit as well as the manifest realms. So it's really about being in integrity with the very essence and nature of the divine. And we can experience this in our everyday lives. And when we are in this integrity, and we are experiencing it and outpicturing it, we're saying that is the experience of divine justice. And we want to make clear, and what we've tried to establish in this series, that for whatever degree and extent that calling out or speaking out about perceived injustices needs to take place, and it does need to take place from time to time, because as a consequence of being human beings, we can sometimes be off the mark. We can miss the mark. What is supremely important is to make sure that we are practicing justice, meaning as Elena beautifully reminded us in that affirmation, seeing the Christ light in ourselves and in each other and in all beings. That's where divine justice starts. And then relating to ourselves and relating to one another based upon seeing our true nature. Seeing ourselves as deeper than our hands and our arms and our limbs or our titles or the car that a person drives or the home that a person lives in. Wherever you are, God is. So wherever you are, that Christ light is present. So it doesn't matter if you're living in Beverly Hills Whether you are on the right side of history or you're from the wrong side of the tracks, God is present and developing and building consciousness so that we can see that Christ light beyond the appearances, judging beyond the appearances, as Jesus would say. In the second part of this series, we tried to really establish the fact that divine justice starts by every individual claiming the divine inheritance in God. Because ultimately, that is where justice comes from. In the sense that God is our infinite source of supply, supplying our every need. Our needs for justice are, in essence, supplied by the divine. And so this is where we are to look to in noticing that. And that starts with really seeing ourselves as we really are. Seeing ourselves as the very presence of God. And really embodying that. Embodying the fact that we are that light. This is at the heart of what spiritual awakening is about. Really seeing ourselves for who we are. And really stepping into that intimate place of knowing who we are and having that awareness. And really embodying that. Because that's where justice starts. It's very important. There are many ways upon which we as humans can experience fulfillment. We can experience fulfillment through our relationships. We can experience fulfillment through our achievements, our academic success, or our career achievements, things that we accomplish in life, acknowledgments that we get. These are certain levels of fulfillment that we as human beings receive. But there's a more fundamental level of fulfillment that is needed. And that level of fulfillment is the level of fulfillment of being at peace with being in our own skin. That can only happen when we have a sense of who we are in God. As Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of the Unity Movement, says, that in all of man's activities, what we're all seeking is God. What does that mean? That doesn't mean that we're seeking to know the bearded man sitting on a cloud in the sky. That imagery. What it means is we're seeking the experience of God, the experience of peace, the experience of love. In everything that we do, we're looking to enhance that experience. So in seeking this inner fulfillment, that is really important to having a well-adjusted life. And to the degree and extent that we don't have that inner fulfillment, we seek to compensate for that inner fulfillment by seeking it through other means, by seeking it in other ways, and primarily seeking it in ways outside of ourselves. You know, we have to have a certain dollar amount of money in the bank account. We need a certain level of status. We need to drive a certain car. We need to be seen as popular. Nothing wrong with these things in and of themselves, but supremely unhealthy when we're looking to these things to compensate for that lack of inner fulfillment that we are missing. That's why it's important to seek divine justice from a well-adjusted, proper relationship with who we are in God. And our entire human history is replete with example after example after example of how we mistreat ourselves and each other in ways to which we're seeking this inner fulfillment. So I'm seeking the inner fulfillment by being a business tycoon. And in my business tycoon work in ways, absent this inner fulfillment, I do it with impunity. So it's all about me winning. It's all about me getting over at all costs. And so I'm going to create things that prosper me, but at the same time, those very same things that I created that prosper me put other people at an unjust disadvantage. all because I'm missing that inner fulfillment that I'm trying to compensate for by taking advantage of other people or by being self-destructive. Because I'm missing that inner fulfillment, life is not as a rewarding experience as I would like it to be. And so it causes me to see myself as not being enough, or it causes me to see myself as not being able to have enough that I need to live a fulfilling life. So I walk around in a self-defeated posture, and I may engage in habits and activities that are defeatist and very self-destructive because I don't have a proper relationship where I'm being well adjusted to myself. Again, that's why divine justice has to start with our opening ourselves up to the divine in our individual lives so that we have that inner fulfillment. And so history is replete again with examples of how human beings can be unjust to human beings, missing that inner fulfillment. And that's why this justice work is really important. Anything in the human realm that we, in our human understanding, can rightly determine as being unjust simply means that the interested parties did not embody the correct consciousness for divine justice to come in. Unfortunately, with what happened with Mr. Floyd and the tragic end that he experienced, divine justice did not come into play to where the humanity and the divinity of Mr. Floyd could be seen, and the humanity and the divinity of the officers was not nourished enough to make a better decision that would be more helpful, more constructive, have a more peaceful end, have a more productive end. Martin Luther King once made this statement, that his work was not just about liberating the oppressed, it was also about liberating the oppressor, because he saw being an oppressor as a kind of bondage, as a kind of prison. And when you think about it, it really is. It's a prison in the sense that it doesn't allow a person to be free from being grounded in their inherent worth. So again, they're compensating for that. And justice work requires being really open and gut level honest about history, gut level honest about other people's lived experiences, gut level honest about who we truly are. As Charles Fillmore once said, when people understand each other, love increases. So there's a lot of room for us to really understand each other and understand each other in a real way. One of the things that I'm really pleased about in some of the things that have happened in recent weeks is that we've been getting a more complete scope of history. And I have to be honest about something. When American history is taught, most of the time it is taught from the triumphant standpoint. The accomplishments, the strides forward, the innovations that have allowed us to move forward in consciousness, move forward in achievement, and really lead the world in a lot of ways. However, we have to be honest in saying that American history is not all peaches and cream. There has been some really horrible things that have been done that have been unjust to certain people in the course of history. That's just an honest assessment of it. And we don't do ourselves any favors when we don't acknowledge this history. Let me take it a step further. Own the history. Acknowledging it and owning it are two different things. Just as an individual gives a personal testimony of when at certain periods in their life they may have been down and out, where they may have made bad choices, where they may have made horrible mistakes that have hurt other people, and it came to a place of humility and reflection and learning about that and integrating the learning into their consciousness, building their consciousness up better and becoming a better person. And then when they give that testimony, they're able to talk about those things. So is true with the collective history. And here's what I have found to be true. When we talk about, this is just an example, the history of slavery, it does not help that when our children open their textbooks, the slavery experience is described as immigrants coming to this country in search of a better life. That was in my grandson's textbook this year. Oh, no. That doesn't help. And to the degree and extent that we cannot own the not-so-great parts of our personal history, as well as the not-so-great parts of our collective history, own it not from a place of denial or avoidance or turning away or not wanting to acknowledge it, from a place of humility and reflection and genuine learning. To the degree and extent that we are unable to do that, we effectively incubate and preserve some aspect of the original mindset that created those atrocities to begin with. I'll pause for a moment to let that kind of sizzle in your spirit. But it's the truth. What is the lived experience of Native Americans? A lot of horrible things are going on to this day. What is the lived experience of those who we call white Americans? What is the lived experience of Black Americans? What is the lived experience of Hispanics? What is the lived experience of the LGBTQ community? What is the lived experience of people who just escape horrible lands to come into our country? All of these experiences make up the tapestry of the human story. And we don't do ourselves any favors when we highlight some and neglect others. Because to the degree and extent that we don't do that, we're not getting a full picture of all the ways in which God shows up. Think I'm getting political? Nothing I said here is political. It's spiritual work. Because spiritual work is about building consciousness above error. That doesn't just mean when we're talking about I'm not feeling that I'm not enough. It doesn't just mean when I'm talking about I feel like I can't accomplish anything and I need to build my consciousness up in more constructive, confident thoughts. It also means seeing each other rightly. Seeing each other for the divinity and the human beings that we are. And one of my artisms is the only way that you can truly get to know a person is to build a relationship with them. Matt Lilly did a very beautiful thing a couple of weeks ago. He invited people to come to his center to have discussions around race relations. This way we can get experiences from speaking with people directly instead of having our filters and instead of having our opinions about other people filtered through CNN or MSNBC or Fox News or your favorite political commentator. Connect with the humanity of other people directly until you can see yourself in them and then continue to connect. That's how we build a consciousness of oneness. That's how we begin to see the God in ourselves and each other. That's how we begin to understand our oneness with each other. Not that we're going to agree, but because I know you, because I'm in relationship with you. And because I'm in relationship with you, even though we don't agree, we're still beloveds because we're connected. That's how we change consciousness. That's how we build a world that works for all. That's how it's done. That is how it's done. Lowell Fillmore, I quoted him last week. I'm going to quote him again. When we are just towards another person, we attract justice from others. When we are just in our thoughts, words, and deeds, we are making right use of God's harmonious judgment. Harmonious, loving, good judgment, and mercy. And when we practice God's love and justice, we actually enter into the halls of God's justice. And that is right in line with the scripture for this Sunday, this often repeated scripture on Matthew chapter 22, verse 37 through 39. This just happens to be my personal favorite scripture in the Bible. And I could do a series on 5 lessons going into the depth of this scripture and all that it holds for us to get out of it. Jesus said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself." And when I always reflect on this scripture, the thing that stands out most to me is not so much the 2 commandments, but the transition between the 2. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. That's the first commandment, the greatest one. But the second commandment is like the first. You shall love your neighbor as you love yourself. So they're alike. So they mirror each other. So what it literally means is there is no loving God truly if you don't love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's the best and greatest evidence of a love relationship with the divine. In loving our neighbor as we love ourselves, evidence is that we are loving God with the entirety of our being. We are loving the God within us with the entirety of our being. I am seeing my divine worth, knowing my divine worth in God. And then from that seeing, loving my neighbor as I love myself. Because I see the Christ light in you as I have identified it in me. That's divine justice. That's the consciousness that will allow us to overcome and prosper. Dr. Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of religious science, very similar philosophy as it is to unity. He said this: if the principles of Christianity were practiced in a real way, the principles, not the religion of it, not the ritual of it, not the theory of it, the principles of it were practiced, it would end all wars, all conflicts, and restore loving and peaceful relations among people. Practicing the principles, that's what will bring about divine justice. And then maybe as we build in consciousness and in our mission as a spiritual community, inspiring spiritual transformation, that's the consciousness that will end hate. That's the consciousness that will end human trafficking. That's the consciousness that will end police abuse. That's the consciousness that will end all of the ills, the wars. That's the consciousness that will end that, because we will see each other in our divine light, and we will know that as we do to another, we are doing to ourselves. Because whoever I'm looking at with scorn, and I'm looking at you over there, if God is all there is, and God is fully and completely present everywhere, and the portion of God that is me is a part of the all that is present everywhere, the person that I'm looking at with scorn, I'm over there. The portion that is me in spirit, I'm over there. So when I'm pointing at that person, I'm pointing at me. When I'm criticizing that person, I'm criticizing me, because I'm over there where the person is that I'm criticizing. That's a high and holy way to look at it. That's the consciousness that will allow us to heal a lot of these divides. Getting gut honest, being able to sit in that honesty and build relationships with each other in the process. I don't need to belittle you in order to feel my divine worth. I don't need to belittle you or put you at an unjust disadvantage because I know who I am in God. And if I need something, I don't have to take advantage of you. I just draw more from my divinity for what it is that I need. That's divine justice. That's the consciousness that will heal. That's the consciousness that will free us. That's the consciousness that will make love predominant on the planet. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's what it is. And if you sense that I'm a little bit passionate about this, you would be right. Because it's one of my life missions to help build consciousness and shift consciousness on the planet to these ends in creating a world that works for all. So that's divine justice, everybody, in a nutshell.
Amen.
Wow. Well, we are certainly blessed here at Unity of Wichita. And let's think of our blessings also now in giving, in tithing our offerings that place out of our heart. Think of your electronic tithe. You can go to our website and push the donate button. You can mail a check straight to the church. And those of us who are here can place that in the offering bowl in the back. And let's say together our offering blessing. Divine love as needed. Blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, all that I receive, and I am grateful. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And we use the empower imagination to envision our tithe, our offering that we give online, or that we mail in, or that we may leave in the offering plate that's in the rear as we exit today. We envision it and we infuse it with love and energy and power. And we affirm that it goes forth and flows forth in ways that give support, ways that inspire minds, open hearts, and quicken spirits. We are grateful for the law of giving and receiving, the law of circulation, knowing full well that the divine, God the good, is our infinite source of supply. We are so grateful, and together we say, and so it is. Amen. Amen, amen, amen. All right, time for announcements. My partner in spirit is coming forward. Take it away, Sam.
Just a reminder, we are still going to be offering spirit groups. There's just a few more weeks left. So we are getting ready to plan the next rounds, and we'll likely be offering those via Zoom as well, but we may have one. We'll find out soon if we're going to have anything in person. Just a little tease, get you excited. Are you guys here? Hello? Oh, okay. I can't tell behind the masks, you know. You guys could all be snoozing on me and I didn't even know it. Midweek meditation. Did anybody watch that, by the way? Okay. So, I have a confession. I recorded this wonderful, I mean, you guys, it was so good. And I was on mute the whole time. The whole time. So I had to do it again, faster, and it wasn't as good. But let's check it out this week. It's going to be perfect.
Yes, it is.
Trial and error isn't perfect. So we also are going to be having, just a reminder, I've updated this, but I didn't save it on this one, I guess. We're going to continue this. We're having a board meeting this week coming up. So we will determine if there's anything different that we're going to be doing. And we are going to be kicking this over to Matt Lilly to give us an update. Oh, it's blank. What's that mean?
I don't know. It means that I'm on, I guess. Yes, so with the building at 37th and Woodlawn, we've decided as a board to postpone that until we decide as a congregation kind of what the future looks like. Obviously, the COVID and the 2 or 3 months where we were kind of all at our homes and living remotely allowed us to see kind of, I guess, deeper inside of each of ourselves, and then also raise questions about what do we want as we move forward. So obviously there was a lot of energy and a lot of passion before we decided, before COVID, and during COVID I think I fell asleep a little bit, and now we're starting to wake back up. So the building's still there, we no longer have it under contract, but it's still for sale. So we will continue to look at that and many other options, and we'll keep you informed and updated as we look at those options as we move forward. But collectively as a board, we just felt like if the future was too uncertain to move forward at this point with that specific project. But we also agreed as a board over the next 12 months that we need to do something, right? We as a congregation know we need to move forward in some way, shape, or form. And so we'll continue to pursue those things. But at this point, we're kind of in a meditative state. We're kind of in a contemplative state until we feel what's right. And there wasn't enough of us that felt that it was the right time to move forward. So we're going to contemplate on it.
So you could say it's a blank slate.
It's a blank slate. So if you have any ideas or suggestions on how to fill the blank slate, myself or any of the other board members.
All right. Let's have a few chords for the beautiful youth of our spiritual community. We're thinking of the youth of our spiritual community. Some of you may be watching. We want you to know that we love you and we honor you. And Kelly McFarland is here, who's the director of the Youth and Family Ministry, does a great job. Thank you so much for what you do, Kelly. And we just want to bless our youth and call them to mind and just let you know that we love you and we appreciate you, and we can't wait to see you running around in this sanctuary at some point in time in the future. So let's extend our hands and we will affirm our blessing to the youth. We love you. We bless you. We appreciate you. And we behold the Christ as you, just as you are. We love you so much. And we love you all so much. Just as you are wonderful. Just as you are special. And thank you so much for being in the sanctuary and watching online and making this a most wonderful Sunday experience. So for those of us in the sanctuary, we can stand in place. We won't join hands. We won't circle up. We will honor physical distancing. And for those of you at home, we're going to affirm our prayer of protection and sing the peace song. For those here, the words to both are on the monitor. Let us affirm together. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Let